Well, good morning, everybody. It's 7:30 in the morning. We're here in Lakeland for some more rail fanning, and right in front of us we have M452. I figured he'd be here. I was hoping I didn't miss him, and yeah, he's right here. Looks like 833 in the lead and CM44 trailing. Looks like a pretty decent train. Doesn't appear like he has a crew. So for the moment, we're just gonna chill. I'm gonna sit in the truck and see if a crew van shows up or if I hear him on the radio. I'm not sure if he's gonna meet a southbound here, but if he is, then we'll get set up again. But for the meantime, we wait for this 452 to leave in this beautiful early morning October weather. So yeah, let's see how this day goes. We're gonna be in Lakeland and Auburndale for the day, so let's see how that goes. After a pretty decent wait, and just before 9 a.m., the new outbound crew for CSX M452 would finally show up. I'd get some information from JA Dispatch talking to L762, the local Lakeland switcher, that he'd have to wait for an M457 coming southbound near Vitus Junction to pass 452 here before he can get to work in Kathleen. So that gave me a pretty good idea on where he'd be and how long it'd take him to get here. A few minutes later, M452 would dial up JA Dispatch to get a job briefing done and leave his post here at 10th Street once the 457 arrives.
M452-17 with the job brief for JA. On duty at 8 o'clock, Mr. Sampson and Mr. Christopher. PTC's active. We got 30 cars loaded, 89 empty. No speed restriction. 3,200 gallons on both engines, and everything checks out.
Which is 833.7409, both on the head out, is that correct?
That's right. 3,200 on both of them.
89 empties, 8139 tons at 8850 feet, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, anywhere?
Yeah, we got some work in Wildwood. We have 13 to set off and some to pick up in the yard. Alright, 457 buys and then we head north. Thank you. 458. 2 out.
With their job briefing now complete and done, all we have to do is wait on the incoming southbound M457, manifest traffic from Waycross's Rice Yard, working at Baldwin, and ending at Taft on the CFRC.
M457 of the 16th movement of CSX 3472 as medium approach from medium 10th Street, lead track siding southbound out.
5-7, y'all look good.
Alright, checking it.
With M457 being cleared to switch here at 10th Street, M452 can make their way northbound after getting authority from the road foreman to cross the I-4 bridge about a mile or so north of here.
Appreciate it.
CSX M452, 17, Foreman, DL Chatham, over. Mr. Chatham, yeah, Christopher here with the CSX 833. We are northbound. We'd like to see if I can get permission to your limits there when we can, over. Hi, Mr. Chatham. Christopher with that CSX 833. Understand your men and equipment are in the clear. We may proceed northbound to your limits. AR 853.2, AR 854.3, max speed permitted for our train. Over. Alright, okay and correct. 0955, 0955. CSX M45217. 45217.
With their newly given authority to cross the I-4 bridge and their clear signal here at 10th Street, M452's crew can get the train moving and get to their next stops at Wildwood, Baldwin, and eventually end their trip at Waycross, Georgia, in the Big Rice Yard. This M452 is just shy of 9,000 feet long, with 30 loads and 89 empties, and he got up to track speed pretty quickly here, which is around 50 miles an hour. With M452 cleared 10th Street and on its way up north, I would stick around for a few more minutes and watch the crew bus leave before moving to my next location, but not before getting surprised by a northbound local, the one I heard talk to dispatch earlier, L762, following right up behind the M452, making his way to Kathleen to do some work in the area.
CSX Foreman Chatham gives engine number 2025 permission to come through his work limits on the Vitus sub from the ARE53.2 to the ARE54.3. Equipment are off the back of the clear. You may proceed authorized to your train. That is correct at 10:06, over. Pull down our Griffin Road, probably be there about an hour. Okay, pulling the Griffin there out.
With nothing else in the Lakeland area after L762, I'd make my way over to Plant City, north of the interlocking, to catch the southbound CSX B619, ethanol loads from the CN in Chicago, Illinois, bound for Hookers Point in Tampa, with an ES44, ET44, and CM44 biodiesel class leader in the lead. Before leaving Plant City and making my way towards Auburndale to catch some Amtrak action, I'd move up north to the Spencer Street crossing near the cemetery to catch L779, the S-line switcher for Plant City, doing a light engine move to go from the main track to the siding track. Was not expecting that 779 to be moving so quickly. I was leaving the last spot, gonna head over to Auburndale, and I looked and saw the slow approach signal at Sandler Junction. So I went back up here to where I was gonna see the B619 originally, and yeah, light engine moved past the signals to get reversed onto the other track to get to his actual train. Cool. Not a bad day so far. Already like 4 trains. I think 5 actually. That's pretty good. I'm probably not going to stay for him coming back with his actual train because I want to get to Auburndale in time before P098. And I don't know if I'll hit any traffic on the way there, so I think we're just going to make our way down towards Auburndale. Arriving at Auburndale a little while later, I'd get surprised by an incoming L772 going long-herd forward with 1 covered hopper, making his way back to Winston Yard. Wow, okay. Okay. Man. I'm just now getting to Auburndale, and that happens. Okay. Cool. I have no clue who that is, but okay. I think that's 772. I think. That's crazy. Okay. Eventually setting up at the Downtown City Park in downtown Auburndale, I'd be set up for Amtrak P098 and eventually P041. For some reason, I forgot to actually start recording on my Lumix G85 for P098, so we're using my iPhone 14 Pro's video for this, which thankfully was recording. Switching back to the G85 footage, we'd catch Amtrak P041, the southbound Floridian, passing through downtown Auburndale, approaching its next stop in Lakeland, then Tampa, then doubling back to Lakeland, where we'll see him later. Moving back to Lakeland, we'd set up at Lakeland Junction to catch an incoming northbound M604, manifesting phosphate traffic from Winston Yard up to Waycross, Georgia. I was anticipating him to be on the other track, the main line, and not the siding, but they kept him on the siding all the way up to 10th Street, so he was right up against the camera. Not a bad shot, but the exposure could have been a lot better. After the 10,000-foot long M604 finally cleared Lakeland Junction, I moved to Wabash Avenue to catch Amtrak P041, who for some reason was stopped near South Winston, then got a move on, and would have to stop again at South Lakeland to wait on the incoming Amtrak P040, the northbound Floridian. I'm not too sure why JA didn't route 41 on track 2 and 40 on track 1, so 40 wouldn't have to switch tracks twice, but for some reason he put 41 on track 1 and 40 on track 2, making P040 have to divert twice around the stopped P041. Anyways, here's P041 at Wabash Avenue with the same Phase 7 P42 we saw in Auburndale.
All stops out, Blake.
It wouldn't take too long for P040 to show up, so P041 wouldn't have to wait too long for his northbound counterpart to arrive. The leading locomotives on Amtrak P040 today would be a treat. The leading engine, Locomotive 63, a P42 DC, would have probably the best horn I've heard on any Amtrak locomotive, by far, and one of the best horns I've heard of all time, a Narrowfront K5LA, which kind of reminds me of the Amtrak Dash 8s that run out in California on some of their services. The second engine, a Phase 6 Charger, number 307, is also a treat to see. Not too common, but they do pop up every once in a while. So, with a friendly female engineer, here'd be Amtrak P040, the northbound Floridian, passing us here at Wabash Avenue on his way to his next stop at Tampa Union Station.
Amtrak P098, 154, get it clear. South Lakeland, 1 to single main, right Lakeland Station, over.
After P040, I'd move towards Kathleen near the I-4 bridge to catch a few more trains to end off the day. First up would be an incoming L729 getting authority over the I-4 bridge from the road foreman with an ES40 and ES44 in the lead.
Said engine number 5321. CSX Orbit 8 Clemens gives engine number 5321 permission to come through my limits on the Vitus sub from the AR 853.2 to the AR 854.3. Maximum speed permitted for your train, over.
Alrighty, we got an L729 leaving Winston. Looks like an ES40 DC leader.
That is correct. Let's call it 1739.
It's about 5:40 p.m. So I'm just south of the I-4 bridge, waiting on M453. I attempted to go catch a P040 again at Winston and missed that, so went back here and heard dispatch talking 729. So yeah, we got 729, we got 453, and eventually we got IO44, and I think that'll be it for me. So yeah, there's red signal southbound at 10th Street, so for sure 729 is the one who's going to be on the main right now. 453 last I checked was at Owensboro about 10 to 15 minutes ago, so he should be approaching Vitus Junction, so this 729 might meet him at Stokes or at Vitus Junction maybe, actually. So yeah, let's wait on the 729. Well, that was a very short 729. Okay. I thought he was going to be really long because he looked like he had some mixed freight, but that was all he was just mixed freight. Barely any rock, and he's a rock train. Wow, that's, good L729, I guess, and, actually, if I can zoom in real quick. We now have an approach at 10th Street, and I'm guessing that's for 453. I don't get how there's already an approach when 729 hasn't even cleared, but okay. I'm gonna walk back over and set up at the bridge, and we'll get 453 next. It took about 20 to 30 minutes for M453 to show up from the north, with 3 big GEs in the lead, pulling about 7,000 feet of train, including his usual mixed freight and auto racks. I've always wanted to catch a train here at the I-4 bridge, but the last time I attempted that back in August, the train didn't show up until way past sunset, so I got him, but with barely any lighting. This time, with M453, we actually got some pretty good afternoon lighting on him. Not as good as I wanted, but still definitely works.
ARE 53.2.
To end off the day, I'd move up a few miles north to Kathleen to a pretty familiar spot I haven't been to in a very long time. The distance signal to Kathleen and 10th Street, Kathleen going northbound and 10th Street going southbound. My last train here would be CSX I-044, northbound intermodal and Tropicana loads from Tampa up to Duval Yard in Jacksonville. One of my favorite trains to catch around here, and one that's been harder to catch in good lighting, and once it changes to standard time in early November, a train you won't be able to see in any daylight at all, unless he somehow runs early. Regardless, whether or not the lighting was good here or not, I-044 is one of my favorite trains, and I'll catch it in any chance I can. So, to end off a pretty busy day of rail fanning around Lakeland, Plant City, and Auburndale, would be CSX I-044 northbound with locomotive CSXT 7564 in the lead, a rebuilt CM44AH with a nice K5LA, with a pretty decently long consist, around 4,000 feet.
I-044, 17 CSX 275 for clear.